Afternoon all. I'd like to do a brief commentary video of an excellent game from the Chinese Championship. Zhao 2589 was playing Wang, the number 3 rated Chinese player in the world, at 2706. I want to use this game as an example also. It's a great game in itself, but an example of the idea that we really need to try and anticipate forcing moves in advance, because otherwise it's simply too late. It doesn't matter who you are. You've had it sometimes. If once you reach those danger levels, there's no going back. So let's see in this game what happened. Zhao played e4, and if there's interest, I'll do a presentation style video from like a Google Doc about this particular subject, which I'm not sure has been touched on in much detail on this channel. Although there has been a lot of forcing move videos, the idea of the importance of preparing for forcing moves to see the dangers coming up is very interesting, I think. So e6 from Wang, d4, d5. Now Zhao plays knight d2, the Tarash. Now d takes e4. So this avoids kind of white's advances with e5. So black's not content to play a kind of low in space game. Instead, he wants to put central pressure along this diagonal. That's the usual idea, kind of Fort Knox variation in the French. Bishop d7, and the usual idea is to do something about this bishop like this, putting it here, and sometimes the bishop's taking on f3. So we see knight f3, bishop c6, bishop d3, and even here sometimes I think players of black have considered bishop takes e4. Even early here, if I do a quick reference check, bishop takes e4 has been played actually more than 200 times, more than 300 times. It's a move here. The bishop kind of gets out of the way of things by taking on e4, and one less knight to harass black on the king side if black's going to castle king side. So it's important in two respects, potentially, to kind of consider getting rid of this light squared bishop. Although it looks like a good bishop compared to the normal French defence bishop, this isn't kind of now a normal French defence type position. It's not that black lacks space. It's his king side could be under great pressure if he routinely castles on the king side. White castles king side here, knight gf6, and we see after knight g3, black is writing the home address of his king quite clearly now with bishop e7. And you'll note here that still, black at any point could have got rid of this light squared bishop. And you might not think this is at all important. And it kind of highlights something. Okay, we can be theoretical experts in all the different openings and know that taking on f3 might be a safe idea from study of particular openings. But maybe, a lot of us, haven't got that much time, really want to dynamically play a good game. And here, there are some hidden dangers in the position in terms of potential forcing moves already. With the light square bishop, potentially like c4 and d5, or if the bishop was on d5, then c4. But also, if this knight is permitted now, as it is, after rook e1, to go to e5, because here is another opportunity for black to take on f3. It will start to get dangerous in other respects as well. So after castles, for the moment the knight doesn't go to e5, we see c3, and again black has this opportunity of simply taking here and sealing up things with c6, and it looks like potentially solid position where black could even try and play for later e5, for example like this, taking shoring up d5 and playing it as if e5 later might be on the cards like this. But we don't see that. We see rook e8, and now bishop c2, and there's an imminent threat of just this simple battery on h7 here. Bishop f8, it's not played at the moment, queen d3, instead bishop g5. The bishop's kicked, and it's not taking on f6 here. It just retreats back to f4, stopping black really from any intention of e5. Now again, this bishop doesn't take on f3 again. It goes to d5. And in terms of what I want to do a much more theoretical video, it is a good game example, and I can find you lots of other examples, but there's been multiple opportunities for black to take on f3 in this game. And now after knight e5, from a positional point of view, if black ever plays knight takes e5 now, we have a kind of overprotection of a strong point, which you'll know from many of the videos on this channel, that's often leading to a very strong kingside attack, which is often irresistible. If you strong point e5, then the defensive resources are kind of depleted. And unfortunately, this knight, it wasn't snapped off, and now it's a bit of a menace, because if it's left there, if it's tolerated there, white has now forcing moves, including c4 and knight takes f7, in many instances now of positions coming up. For example, if c5, c5 was played, and at the moment c4 and knight f7 are not a problem. But I wanted to show you in this position after queen d3, if knight takes e5 is not played here, so this was the game continuation, but say black plays a move like a6, I just want to demonstrate now the forcing moves that white has available, and it's really too late. It's a situation which is really too late for black. The bishop is a target now for c4. It could, if it drops back, now knight h5 with horrendous threats, and I'll show you, for example, if knight takes e5, well then knight takes f6 is mating on h7. But if g6, then we start to see that the knight's really, really dangerous for knight takes f7. And the importance of this really is it just demonstrates how deadly this knight can be like this, the importance of its removal earlier on. Now this kind of position is just devastating. For example, taking here, rook sack, this is just the variation check, and the black king's really just had it. So it looks like a typical Tau massacre. But the key thing is there's just no going back. Once this situation arises here in this kind of situation with multiple forcing moves, there's actually there starts to be no going back. Here black did try after queen d3, he took on e5, but again now after d takes e, black is aware that if he moves the knight he'll get mated, so he's planning on c4. Okay, the queen drops back, and here is another critical situation of a lesser evil. Black played knight h7. I'm not sure, Wang is an exceptionally strong player over 2700, but knight d7 has a kind of advantage in terms of this idea of trying to prevent forcing moves, that it doesn't give white the continual option of bishop takes h7, which could be useful to white. It's contesting the f6 square, which is useful against knight h5. So here we see a slight issue, perhaps, as well, that black played knight h7, potentially making white's task easier. Because as I say, now there's multiple options all the time of bishop h7 and knight h5. So this idea of trying to anticipate forcing moves in advance, I think is really critical. Queen g4, there's not much black can do here. White's threatening bishop h6. It seems logical and necessary to get out of the way now. You might think, though, g6. Okay, let's quickly check g6 in that position. Pardon me. Knight h7, queen g4, g6. I should have checked this earlier. It just occurred to me g6 is potentially playable here. Well, it does weaken the dark squares. I think it becomes a necessary move in the game continuation anyway. There's nothing immediately winning about this. So in the game anyway, king h8, knight h5, and now this is really dangerous, because the knight leaving the third rank with this like overprotection of this strong point, as I say, often attacks are much easier to play, but specifically the rook lift like this is now exceptionally dangerous, either to g3 or h3. There's very, very little black can do about this. In fact, this is a really dangerous plan. Black tries to evict the knight with g6. And an incredible move now, which demonstrates the helplessness of black, because there's this like iron grip of overprotecting e5, and just basically more attacking resources that white has at his disposal than black can possibly defend with. Can you guess what white played in this position against the Chinese number 3? If I give you 10 seconds, starting from now. Okay, rook e3, and there's just huge threats in this position to deal with. Black tried g takes, taking the knight. Queen takes h5. For example, you know, rook h3 and bishop h6. It's just absolutely horrendous for black's king safety in this position. Black tried here rook e7. If the f7 is not defended, well, it has to be defended. I mean, there's actually no real defense here. There's too many attacking possibilities. We've got 3-4 attacking pieces here, and very little defense of the black king. After rook e7, rook g3, we see the move rook d7, and now after bishop takes h7, black resigned in this position, actually. So let's see specifically why. So if king takes, then the simple forcing move, it seems, queen g4. And how can black defend both these squares? If he moves the bishop, he gets mated on g7. So he'd have to give up the queen. So it's a really, really cruel game. But it shows that I wanted to sort of find a good example of where there's no coming back. Because you've allowed forcing moves, there's no coming back. And in particular, you know, I wanted to show in this game that black, you know, if the danger was sensed, then perhaps moves like bishop takes f3. There were multiple occasions where bishop takes f3 was possible, but it became just an unbearable position after for black. And even 2700s, they often don't have that sense of danger. It's not just us club players. We reach these positions, there's actually no turning back. And the only chance we have is if we really try and anticipate all the forcing move dangers, you know, well ahead of time. So I hope you found this game interesting, and I'll try and do a specific video about the theory of what I wanted to demonstrate with this game soon. Comments or questions on YouTube. Thanks very much.